Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Future of Medicine podcast. I am your host, Dr. Aaron Wenzel, and I am joined once again by the lovely and talented Jen Justus.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Jen, it's always a good day when I get to talk with you.
I know. Thank you.
This episode is part 2 of a 3-part series we're calling the 3 Pillars of Health, eating, moving, recovering. As a reminder, or in case someone is just listening to this for the first time, this is a 3-part series covering what we believe to be the 3 buckets where all meaningful progress in one's health journey take place, whether you improve the way you feed your body, the way you move your body, or the way you recover your body. There are some things that fall out of those buckets, but for the most part, improvements in your health journey will fall into one of these 3 categories. In the last episode, we talked all about how to feed your body. So it was about diet and our thesis around how we believe most humans, for optimal health, should feed their physical bodies. In each of these episodes, we're also going to take kind of a 3-layer approach as we dive into each of these 3 pillars. One is you start with the way you think about it. In other words, how should you be thinking about this topic? Number 2, experience. How do many people experience this physically? And then feel, how will improving this area make you feel emotionally, spiritually? And so we're going to start this section of the podcast all about going deep into how do you think about moving your body. And Jen, you and I, we spend a lot of time talking about thinking.
We do.
In many ways, the entire human experience is in one's mind. And so I don't think we spend enough time as a culture talking about thinking and getting the mindset right before you take action. So everything begins in the mind. And I think it's important to really dive into the ideal way to think about moving your body. And we're not talking about woo-woo thinking. We're talking about, like, what do you want to get out of your body? What's the goal? Why is this even important? What would you like your body to move like? And one thing that we talk about a lot is, from a motivation goal-setting standpoint, is this an internally derived motivation or is it an externally derived motivation? And those have different consequences typically, different outcomes. And, I'll start this by just giving my own story. I spent the large majority of my youth and young adulthood in great shape. We were just cracking up over some pictures of me and my
They were great.
in all of my glory back in the days. And I was very fit, and I played a lot of sports, and that was absolutely a part of who I was as a human. I was fast, I was strong, it was my identity, I identified with it. And then, life happens. And about 5 years ago, I fired Fat Aaron, as I say.
I love that.
Starting a business, having a couple of kids, working in the ER at that time. Really, like most people, you start cutting and trimming and cutting and trimming and cutting and trimming your schedule because you run out of discretionary time because you're so busy and so stretched, being so many demands. And of course, I cut on fitness and I cut on diet and I became a very unhealthy, fat version of myself. Until one day it really, really was me planting a stake in the ground. And I've been on this journey where I wanted to be true to who I was, my authentic self. And my authentic self was someone who desired to be fast, like physically moving through space fast and strong. And those were really compelling reasons to begin this journey of recapturing my health. And listen, I think it's really important because, as we all know, when you begin moving from a very non-ideal version of ourselves physically to becoming a fit, healthy version of us physically, it's hard in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And you better have some really compelling reasons to get through the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the fun and like enjoyment, and we'll talk about this later, it comes way, way down the road.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a real reason to move through the pain and suffering. And now I'm there, and I'm feeling the joy and the confidence and the satisfaction and the fun and the craving and the like all the benefits that we talk about, but those are lagging findings. If you don't mind, would you share your, or at least part of your story?
Sure. My story is quite a bit different than yours. So I was born with congenital hip dysplasia because I was born breech, and I had surgery at 6 weeks old to correct that, and did really well, like all through my childhood. I mean, surprisingly, I didn't walk until I was like 2 years old.
Wow.
So, yeah, they didn't even know if I would be able to walk, but I, overachiever that I am, I proved them wrong. So, and did really well, all through grade school and high school. I played tennis. I did track for, a little bit in high school. And then I made really great gains with weight loss through my nutrition. And I remember you and I having this conversation that you brought up the idea that maybe I should get a personal trainer. And I remember that day vividly, because I was like, okay, I guess like I'll start searching. And so I found a really great trainer at my local Y, and we started working out, and it was like 1 day a week. And then I was kind of like doing nothing on the other days, and doing a lot of like some strength training, but more HIIT workouts. Mm-hmm. And that really started to irritate my hip, and I sought the consult of an orthopedic surgeon who basically told me I needed a hip replacement, mm-hmm. which I did not want to hear at that time, because
I remember that
I'm way too young to have that done. And leveled up and found an amazing physical therapist, Dr. Tyler Brazelton, in town. He's amazing, and basically said, let's get to work on strengthening your hip so that you don't need hip surgery, which led to basically him becoming my personal trainer, and shifted from the HIIT workout and kind of like, hey, let me know if this hurts your hip, to let's do exercises that don't hurt your hip, and I'll watch your form really closely. And I've had amazing progress through that journey. But the thinking part of it for me, and you have really helped me with this, as has Tyler, is I tend to overthink things, shocker. And I had a real strong all or nothing thinking around fitness, meaning mm-hmm. if I had a plan to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and hit the gym, and I didn't do it, then I would say, well, screw it, I'm just done for the day, I'm not going to go. And so really, one of the sayings I love that you share with me is all progress begins with telling the truth. And so the truth of the matter is, could I just show up and do something? Could I do it after work? Could I maybe not do my entire workout as planned, but maybe just walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes? Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this on prior podcasts, but we share our Apple Watch data, which is funny and cool at the same time. But you always cheer my workouts, which I really appreciate. And that motivated me in the beginning, like, oh, I've got to get that cheer from Dr. Wenzel. He needs to know that I'm really working hard. Mm-hmm. And that transpired into, us kind of joking around about it. But you always say in there, you showed up today.
Yeah.
And to me, that's important, even if it's not a perfect workout, to overcome that all or nothing thinking of mm-hmm. like, I can do something most days of the week. And Tyler has shared with me a little mantra that we use, which is if you take 100% and you divide it by 365 days, that equals 0.275 basically. So he's like, if you just move the needle 0.275 every day, which is a micro incremental mm-hmm. amount, you'll end up improving 100% by the end of the year, which I really love, because again, I feel like I, have to make huge gains all the time in order to feel like I'm being productive and progressing, but that's not true. Like, you can just do something every day to kind of move that needle. So I've really changed my thinking a lot around fitness in a positive way, which I'm proud of. So, mm-hmm. but it's been tough.
I mean, you shared so much there that I would love to unpack, and I'm going to try to be disciplined and stay on course. But I can't move on to the next section without first thanking you for sharing that.
Thank you.
I'm sure that will resonate with a lot of people. There are two things that I want to pull out of that and just highlight, and then we can move on. Number one, people who start and stop or never start their health journey, in my experience, the number one reason is perfectionism. This idea that if I can't do it perfect, I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
Which is such bad doctrine. Because there is no such thing as perfection. Perfection is an illusion, and it's a very elegant stall tactic to be a perfectionist.
Yep.
Because you can very easily hide behind your ideals and never take action.
Yeah.
And to overcome that can be a very, very large challenge for people. But you also, the second thing I want to highlight is that you actually gave the antidote. And the antidote is being a person who shows up.
Just show up.
Divorcing yourself of this idea of perfection, that I'm on a journey of becoming the best version of myself. And one of the attributes I want to be known for is someone who shows up.
Yeah.
And I show up for myself. And even if I just show up to the gym, say hi, and leave, you start to become a person who goes to the gym.
Yeah. You adopt that identity.
Correct.
I am somebody that works out. I am a healthy person.
And that was critical, even though I didn't share it, in my
Yes, it
firing
was.
of Fat Aaron.
I remember that.
I remember telling you, like, Jen, I don't even know, 90% of the time, I'm not even sure I'm going to work out, but I'm going to, there's no excuse not to take my coffee into the garage, put a hoodie on and a beanie, and turn the heater on and start stretching.
Just do something.
I'm going to show up every day of the week in my garage for me. I don't know if I'm going to work out. And what's funny is I committed with no excuses. I suffocated all excuses to show up, and I showed up. And you know what happens? By the time I'm stretched and my coffee's down, I'm going to get a little workout in.
Yeah.
And that just begins to evolve into this beautiful thing.
And I remember our conversation around that, because my perception of you starting your fitness journey was that it was so easy for you. And you're like, no, quite the opposite. You know, I struggle with getting out of bed too, and just getting it done. But you just...
Well, you famously said one day, Dr. Wenzel, but it's easy for you.
It's easy for you.
And I was like, correction, it's hard.
Yeah.
I have big reasons, and I want the results. I don't show up. Oh, that's what it was. It's easy for you because you love to work out.
Yeah.
And I said, no, you're wrong. I deserve the results. That's why I work out.
Yeah.
And I'm hunting the results. And we both have had a similar emotional experience and lessons learned, but we definitely took different paths. And it's, hopefully these stories can inspire someone. Let's move on to the next section here. We've kind of touched a little bit on it, but once the mindset is right, once you've really identified with your ideal future self and you have very compelling reasons to begin this journey, now you have to kind of embrace the suck. Because how will you experience physical fitness physically in the beginning? Like, let's be honest, it's not great.
No.
It feels sacrificial. It feels energy sucking, and for many people, it's just not fun. And humans like to do fun things.
Yeah.
Physically, your body feels weak, you're sore, you're tight, you're fatigued. And oh, by the way, if you don't have a great relationship with food, it stimulates appetite and hunger. So it's like a really complex
loop
that you have got to power through. And we have found the only antidote to that is having the mindset of keeping your eyes on the prize and keep showing up. This is short term. This is short term feedback.
Yeah.
And the excitement and the enjoyment and the pleasure and the benefit that you can see, measure, that other people can see and measure and acknowledge, that comes later. Like, you really need to be anchored in those ideas, because physically in the beginning, it's hard. And I now have a longing and a craving for my training.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been this has been many, many years in the process, and it wasn't like that in the beginning. But I'm at the point now where I've got the windfall of benefit, because I was a person who showed up every single day for 5 years. Now it's not work to show up, because that's just, well, I'm a guy who shows up.
Yeah, you just do it.
How did you experience it physically?
My story's a little different because I was experiencing physical pain, at the time. Yeah. And so my range of motion was limited. What I could do was very limited. I mean, I felt like there was a very short list of things that I could do at the time. So, and even now I have flares. I have days where it hurts because, I've really moved my workouts to more of strength training with progressive overload. So we're doing a lot of compound movements, deadlifting, squatting, things I've never done before in my entire life that terrify me, but we're making it. And that actually make my hip feel better. But in the times when I have flares or it hurts, we just transition back down to a little rehab type workouts and get it better. And then we move on, which is nowhere near how I was working out before. But, yeah, in the beginning, it sucked. I mean, it hurt, and finally got to a point where it was manageable. And, like the first time that I was able to walk on the treadmill without pain, and I actually got to where I could jog on the treadmill, I cried. And not because it was hurting, because I was like amazed that I could even do that, because I was told, don't do any type of weight-bearing exercise on that hip right now. Do the elliptical, do the bike, which are super boring for me. I hate it. And I wasn't getting stronger doing those things. So again, my journey is a little different, but I'm in a really good place with it right now, to where the pain is manageable, and less and less flares throughout the months that go by, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, your experience has been similar to mine in the beginning.
Yeah. But
then I was like, once I set sail, I was fine. You have had a unique variable in your physical journey with your hip, because you're fine for a while, then your hip flares, and then you're fine for a while, then your hip flares, then your hip flares, then your hip flares, then you're fine for a while. And I have watched you from the sideline manage that psychology and wrestle with it at moments, knock right through it in moments, kind of have dialogue with your own psychology with it. But the net result has been you have now an added layer of psychological and emotional toughness that match your physical toughness that you have been implementing.
Thank you.
And that hip of yours has been a unique variable. And there are a lot of people who are listening who have some sort of physical reminder that their body either has some sort of biomechanical deficiency, or you have some pain point. Maybe you have a bad back, you have
shoulder
rotator cuff injuries, maybe you have bad hips, maybe you have a bad ankle, maybe you have bad knees, bad neck, like the thing on your body that, even though you have the psychology right, and even though you're a person who shows up, and even though you're starting to experience some of the windfall of benefit, you will likely always be tethered to this physical reminder that you have this thing. And that's another layer that you have to psychologically kind of become equipped.
I've wanted to quit. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, I know.
I'm like, this pain is not worth it. Let's just replace this thing and get it over with. But I'm not doing that right now. It's just not something that will serve me right now.
But for a woman who didn't want to start because she couldn't be perfect, I'm going to brag on you for a second, because it was not last night. I think it was the night before. You texted me telling me that you were jogging inside of your condo, your townhome.
I'm not supposed to do that.
In order
to close my Apple rings. Yeah.
And I remember just smiling ear to ear, thinking who has this woman become?
Yeah.
That she is that ferocious, that at the end of the day, you're going to do the thing that you hate to do, which is run, in order to be a person who finishes the day strong.
Because I worked damn hard that day.
Yeah.
And I wanted to close them, because that to me is like, okay, I can finish.
It's so good. It's so good.
I'm not still perfectionist or anything.
And that perfectly leads us into part 3, which is the emotional, spiritual experience that you will likely feel in a fitness journey. As we've said, feeling great, being strong, and loving to work out, those are lagging, late stage findings in one's journey. And I think preparing for the fact that they will come later, that deferred gratification, and it's rooted in this idea of like doing hard things short term, make long term easy.
Yes.
Like short term hard, long term easy. Short term easy, long term hard.
That's right.
And there is a lot of truth to that. And it's dangerous, as we have seen when people begin this journey, to use these goal experiences or goal outcomes as the metrics to measure success.
Yeah.
Because those are not leading indicators. Those are lagging indicators. And it's not binary, right? I mean, you don't feel bad and then one day you just feel good. You don't feel weak and then all of a sudden feel strong. Right. It's a journey. It's progressive. It's 2-3 steps forward, half a step or 1 step back, 2-3 steps. It's a net score game.
It's a game of inches.
And you can't measure long-term indicators in the short term as a fuel source. You have to stay in it long enough that I don't remember doing anything to feel so great, but I just feel great because you have the tailwind and you have the momentum. It's the same with relationship equity. It's the same thing with financial stewardship. It's the same thing with like being a great parent. Like being a great spouse, what do I do to deserve this? But you just get this windfall of love and of adoration, of relationship, of connection. Those are decades of investment, quietly, sacrificially, thanklessly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing in our fitness journey for ourselves.
I love that.
And now I love working out. I look forward to it. In many ways I crave it. And again, it wasn't always like that. I had to start with a deep conviction and compelling reasons that I was not going to be fat and slow and sick. I was going to be fast and strong and vibrant. And, being disciplined in the things I needed to do with my body, the way I needed to move my body, the way I needed to have my body show up, have now created the freedom of confidence, the freedom of control to be my best self. And it's another example of freedom and discipline.
I love that concept so much.
It's so good. This is a good topic, Jen.
Oh.
I think I love it because it's so real for us personally and then interpersonally between you and I. And there are very few people who we get the pleasure of taking care of where they aren't somewhere on this journey of becoming their best physical self. It's complex, and we are complex creatures.
We are.
And I hope this was useful to the people who are listening. If one person can begin the journey and be someone who shows up and be committed to their long-term ideal version of themselves and put in the time, the commitment, the sacrifice to themselves because they deserve the result, it'll all be worth it.
Totally.
Well, great. As always, thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, everybody, before we jump into this episode, I just want to say this is an amazing topic. It's one that Jen and I deeply care about. We're very, very passionate about how we need to be moving our body, our physical fitness journey as humans, how we pursue our ideal self. And that is the reason to do it, that we deserve those results. We deserve to be our best self. We really hope that you enjoy the show.